Hi, welcome back to day 4 of our series called Big Questions. And today's topic is, why did man sin? Because we know God's the creator. We know he created man and woman for a purpose, and we know that they did indeed sin. But in Genesis chapter 1, verse 29, when you're looking at the end of the 6-day creation, after God's created man, on the 6th day, it says this, in verse 31, then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So God saw everything he made, including man, and said, it is very good. So God said that after creating men were good. And he put them they were in a stage of innocence. They did not have a knowledge of good and evil. They didn't have a sin consciousness. They're in the garden and they are doing the things that God has told them to do. Adam's naming the animals. Eve is there at his side. They're tending and keeping the garden. And here comes the question. You have these seemingly morally innocent people, the only innocent people ever born aside from Christ, the only, and they're considered good by God and they sin. How is that possible? And I guess the only way to explain that is that they had at least an option to do what they were told to do or to not do what they were told to do. They at the very least had a binary choice. So somewhere hardwired in their DNA, God gave them a will, an ability to discern what they thought they should do or not do, regardless of whether or not God said to do it or not to do it, even though he created them with a good nature, not a sin nature. And so when we think of the term original sin, we think that the original sin was Adam and Eve eating the apple or whatever the fruit was, the forbidden fruit. It probably wasn't an apple, but we use that to simplify it. But original sin actually refers to the very fact that since that time, every person born from Adam and Eve has a sin nature. They have a nature that they have inherited from their father Adam. All of our great granddad. We all have this nature that leans us toward sin from the very onset. And this is not my opinion. This is fact, because I want you to read Romans chapter 5 with me, verse 12. It says this, therefore, just as through one man sin entered the world, and death through sin, and thus death spread to all men because all sinned. We're going to skip down to verse 14. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over those who had not sinned, according to the likeness of the transgression of Adam, who is a type of him to come. So what we get here is something pretty simple, and it's also pretty amazing. Adam sinned. Notice that the blame for the sin falls on Adam, and fathers and husbands, you need to understand this, that your responsibility in the home makes a huge, huge difference, because God will hold you accountable. You are the spiritual lead, and God gave the command not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil to Adam in the garden. Go back and look it up. And so here we have a situation where the Bible tells us that through one man, that's Adam, sin entered the world, and death through sin. And it said, even though we all didn't sin like Adam did, we're still under the curse of death and sin. And there's a part of me that says, but God, that's not fair. It's not fair that I'm being judged for what Adam did. If I were in that garden, I would have obeyed you. And the reality is, I would not have. There would have come a day, it could have been 1 day in, 100 days in, or 1,000,000 days in. If death was not in the earth, I'd have lived as long as I wanted to live. But I would have eaten from that forbidden fruit too, and so would you. And that creates a complex, but we are all under this curse of death and sin because of Adam's sin. Did God know it was going to happen? You better believe it. Did God make it happen? No. God gave Adam everything he needed, a very, very comfortable existence, all the food he could need, all the clothing he could need. He gave him a companion in Eve. And when Adam saw Eve, he said, whoa, she's good. That looks good. So God gave Adam everything he needed, and Adam still decided to do something else. Adam was God's first representative. He was a type of Christ to come, but he was almost an antitype because he led us to sin, and therefore Christ leads us to victory in life and forgiveness. Hope you come back for day 5 of this series on big questions. God bless.
Subscribe for more.